Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera, tasyahau. Yang pilih tinggi vanakkam. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. Apa khabar semua? Ya, malam-malam di Universiti Malaya, dia kena lagi semangat. Apa khabar semua? Alhamdulillah. Firstly, it's a pleasure to be here. To me, this is a historic night. After almost 8 months of planning, finally we are able to roll out our national e-sports blueprint ataupun Pelan Strategik Pembangunan e-sports bagi tahun 2020 hingga ke tahun 2025. This is very important because throughout all these days and years, e-sports has never been recognized as an actual sports in Malaysia. The stigma behind e-sports is real, where people see gaming often from a negative lens, that gaming comes with addiction, that gaming destroys a person's life, a person's education, and crucial family time. And that with these negative perceptions, it becomes difficult for Malaysia to break in and become a pioneer in Southeast Asia in the field of e-sports. But I believe that change must come. And that change must come not only through the Ministry of Youth and Sports, not only through our e-sports association ESM, but together with industry players, together with e-sports enthusiasts, gamers, and respective corporates who are willing to drive this agenda forward. Sebelum saya pergi kepada pembentangan berkenaan e-sports blueprint ini, izinkan saya kongsikan pengalaman saya dalam dunia gaming. I want to start off by saying I'm obviously not a professional gamer, but to say that I'm not an e-sports enthusiast would be a lie. I'm pretty sure all of us in our own respective ways and at one point in our lives have adored or loved e-sports. Bagi diri saya ingat sebelum saya masuk ke sekolah tentera, itu zaman saya panggil zaman budak nakal, when I was a delinquent. Saya ingat pada zaman tersebut, masa tu saya di JB dan masa cuti sekolah, once we are done with our end of the year examination, I always like to go out with my friends at night to play Dota. Siapa di sini tahu Dota? Siapa tak tahu tu pelik sikit lah. Tapi now there's so many games, so maybe it might be true. So bagi diri saya, I love playing Dota so much that despite facing family barriers, dia masalah sikit bila ibu seorang cikgu. Bukan cikgu je, cikgu disiplin. So bila dia dengar tu e-sports, apa tak ada kena-mena e-sports mana boleh, masa cuti belajar juga. So what I did then, ini saya ceritakan zaman jahiliah, yang baik ikut, yang tak baik kami ikut. But there's a reason why I'm explaining this story, you'll understand at the end. So despite my parents at first disallowing me to engage in e-sports, I found a different way. So kalau nak pergi belah pagi memang tak boleh, sebab ibu akan tanya kat mana. So pada waktu malam, selepas pukul 10 malam, ni yang tak baik jangan ikut but I want to share my experience. Selepas pukul 10 malam, saya akan beritahu dekat ibu bapa saya, mama, saya nak tidur kat rumah Daniel. Daniel is my neighbor. So I say I like to sleep at my neighbor's house. And then Daniel will tell his parents that he would like to sleep at my house. Dah tahu kan jalan cerita dia macam mana. In reality, we meet halfway, and then we had to walk for 45 minutes. Sebab dulu mana ada Grab, nak naik taksi mahal, RM5 tu mahal. So we walk for 45 minutes from a housing residence to the nearest cyber cafe. Dulu mana ada e-sport center ni semua, tak ada, cyber cafe. For 45 minutes, when we arrived at the cyber cafe, we were well known, dah terkenal lah dekat cyber cafe tu, sampai pemilik cyber cafe tu akan berikan special discount. Nampak Saddiq, ni special discount. RM10, 10 jam. So from 10 PM till 8 AM in the morning, pukul 8 pagi. Tapi yang penting, walaupun sampai pukul 8 pagi, solat subuh tetap buat. Jangan lupa, ada surah dengan wajib dekatan. 10 PM till 8 AM in the morning for RM10. I played Dota. At that point in time, Battlefield was a popular game, and obviously, as time passes by, Call of Duty, RYL, and many more. Ragnarok, dulu there were so many. And I enjoyed it a lot. But as time passes by, I noticed that gaming addiction is real. I want to start this first because it's the reality of esports. That while I genuinely love esports, and this is part of my passion, I knew that I had to moderate it. And that's the reality of how things are like today. That we need to find a middle ground. For those who say that esports should not play a role in Malaysia, I think that's an old and outdated agenda. The reality is, esports is an important segment and sector which Malaysians should harness together. But while we harness it, we need to ensure that there are proper checks and balances, that there are regulations, that there is a clear direction, so that when we move forward together in a healthy way. Healthy gaming, a sustainable gaming ecosystem which is necessary. So to me, that story is important, which I just like to share, because while I didn't end up as an esports athlete, at least today, being in the position which I'm in today, it's an absolute honor and privilege to be the one to present Malaysia's very first strategic plan, also known as Malaysia's esports blueprint. It's an absolute honor, daripada dulu tak ada, and now finally being able to roll this plan out. Allow me to do a simple presentation. Ni keluar topik sikit, dia kena launch dulu. Lepas ni baru saya masuk kepada pembentangan. Okay, so let's start with the launching.
Terima kasih Yang Bapak Menteri, dan di atas ucapan pelancaran sebentar tadi kita berikan satu tepukan yang gemuruh untuk Yang Berhormat Menteri Belia dan Sukan Malaysia di atas ucapan pelancaran sebentar tadi, dan dimohon kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri untuk terus kekal berada di atas pentas, dan seterusnya dipersilakan kepada Yang Berbahagia Dato' M. Nur Azmantai untuk naik ke pentas bagi mengiringi Yang Berhormat Menteri untuk menyempurnakan acara majlis yang seterusnya. Dan sebentar saja lagi sama-sama kita saksikan gimmick pelancaran yang akan disempurnakan pada malam ini, dan dipersilakan kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri untuk menekan butang yang berada di mock-up stand di atas podium yang disediakan dengan kiraan 3, 2, 1. bersama dengan majlis pelancaran pada malam ini. Berikan sedikit ruang dan juga masa untuk sesi bergambar. Yang berhormat Menteri Belia dan Sukan Malaysia. Dan untuk maklumat tentara perempuan juga diadakan untuk mengimbau QR code bagi mendapatkan buku Pelan Strategik Pembangunan e-sport 2020-2025 secara digital di dalam Dewan ini dan juga berada di skrin di bahagian luar Dewan ini. Dan terima kasih diucapkan kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri atas penyempurnaan sebentar tadi. Kita berikan satu tepukan yang gemuruh untuk Yang Berhormat Menteri Belia dan Sukan Malaysia. Dan sekali lagi dimohon kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri untuk terus kekal berada di atas pentas bagi menyempurnakan acara majlis yang seterusnya. Tuan-tuan dan puan-puan para hadirin yang dihormati, acara pada malam ini akan diteruskan dengan penyerahan buku Pelan Strategik. Bersedia. Terus saja saya serahkan majlis ini kepada Yang Berhormat Menteri. Dipersilakan.
Terima kasih Tuan Pencara Majlis. So now to the meaty part of the esports blueprint. Just had to share my personal experience because again all of us will have our personal experiences, and hopefully from tonight onward we can pursue our passion in esports and we will be able to make Malaysia the esports hub of Southeast Asia. So allow me to go one by one. Firstly, the introduction of Malaysia's first strategic plan for esports development. So I'd like to point out that this is a 5-year plan which starts from 2020 to 2025. We've engaged all stakeholders from the grassroots to industry players to ensure that we can realize the true esports potential of Malaysia. I believe that the potential is untapped and this market deserves to be growing to the best extent. So how did we come about with this esports blueprint? First things first, we've made 170 direct engagements with multiple different stakeholders. We've engaged with 27 local professional athletes to ensure that their views are taken into consideration. We've engaged with 3 international organizations, 32 tech industry representatives. We've engaged with 30 national esports bodies. We've had 512 public survey feedback. And also we've engaged with 9 different ministries. The reason why the engagement process is critical, because in order for esports to grow, it cannot just rely on a single unit or a single ministry. Esports is all encompassing. We need to work with the Ministry of Education, Communication and many other ministries to ensure that its true potential can be realized. At the same time, we cannot be in our own shop sendiri mindset, in which we don't engage with athletes who have performed, who are professionals in esports. We need to engage with industry players who grow the ecosystem of esports overall. So in a way, this all-encompassing feedback loop ensures that the National Esports Blueprint will be representative of Malaysia's true potential. Next question is, why esports? This is a question which we often hear. Banyak kali kita dengar kata, esports ni bukan sukan. Tak ada buat push up, tak ada berpeluh, tak ada ni, tak ada tu. And we hear that a lot. Even among our neighbouring countries, when I visit, there's still some pushback when the ministers there want to adopt and embrace esports. However, Malaysia must be the frontliner or the first mover, at least in Southeast Asia. We cannot fall far behind countries like China, Taiwan, South Korea, and even the United States, in which they've grown to a great extent, not only in terms of esports as a form of sports, but the industry overall. But at least Malaysia can be the biggest player in Southeast Asia. So let's start with the global audience growth for esports. So for year-to-year comparison, there is a 14% increase from 400 million last year, an estimated increase to 550 million in 2021, which means that the audience or support base of esports will continue to grow and grows at a rapid level. Therefore, the potential is huge, and therefore Malaysia should be one of the frontliners. Interestingly as well, Southeast Asia is the fastest growing region for esports. In 2016, it's about 9.5 million, but in 2019, it went up to as high as 19.8 million. And at the same time, we all know esports is very inclusive. While there are still a lot of barriers which women face, but in general, relative to other sports, it's very much inclusive with almost a 50-50 gender division. Malaysia also is strategically situated in the world in terms of developing esports. At the moment, we are ranked 21st in the world in terms of esports revenue. It's about 560 million US dollars, which converts to about 2.4 billion ringgit. Therefore, the contribution which the esports industry brings to Malaysia is in the billions, and I believe that it can continue to grow. We have a lot of young entrepreneurs who have invested to a great extent in esports, and I believe with a good and sustainable ecosystem between government, private enterprise, education and other ministries, we will be able to grow the ecosystem even more. And as we all know, the biggest segment for esports is those around the age of 12 years old to 35 years old. And we see more and more young people engaging in it, taking it seriously. At the same time, not just within this age segment, we see many different, whether it's console, PC, or mobile, capturing the imagination of those who are also 35 years old and above. So the question then looks at, is esports inclusive, and how do we grow the esports industry together? As this blueprint will demonstrate, is that as we make esports more and more inclusive, the industry will also grow together with it. So what is Malaysia heading to become Southeast Asia's esports hub? We've talked about this a lot, but we need to ensure that policies are in place, monetary support comes in, not just among the government, but also among private enterprise, to ensure that Malaysia cements its position as the esports hub of Southeast Asia. I mean, we personally are very positive that this can be realized, and we are already heading towards that direction. Let's look at a few things. Let's look at 2019 and where we are at today. So at the moment, we've hosted about 4 to 5 major international esports events which have never been done in Malaysia before. And there's been a lot of awareness on esports throughout this year, and we see a lot of global enterprises being magnetized to Malaysia, not only as a hosting ground, but also to invest in Malaysia's esports industries. We see many different World Cups which previously have never been hosted in Malaysia, now being hosted in Malaysia. From Mobile Legends recently to Call of Duty to PUBG, Dota Major, and also League of Legends. We've never hosted these major international esports competitions before, and we believe that in the near future we'll not just be hosting 4 to 5, but the numbers will keep on increasing. And as the numbers keep on increasing, the enthusiasm among Malaysians will also increase. Esports tourism will be factored in to national tourism, and the enterprise which will trickle down to the Malaysian economy will also be felt by all. And it's not just about organizing international esports competitions. It's also about attracting unique investments from esports. We see more and more groups coming in to invest, from Alibaba, Tencent, Munchun, Razer. I think just about 2 weeks ago, Sony has also expressed their interest to invest and invest big in Malaysia. So when we combine this with local enterprises as well, we believe that we can grow to a great extent. As I mentioned before, we have many young esports enthusiasts who have invested in a great extent to develop the esports market. We also have a lot of esports athletes which will also benefit from the growth in the overall ecosystem. I've been meeting up a lot with UAE and Razer, who also are planning to build our very first esports arena. If I'm not mistaken, it will be in Jalan Ipoh. And they've been working really well to ensure that the digital entertainment city overall will be realized. Razer recently came into Malaysia about early this year, first quarter, investing about 100 million ringgit in Malaysia. And we see when the government did the audacious thing to announce a 10 million ringgit esports budget for this year, we see many different companies locally and abroad matching that investment to ensure that the esports industry can grow together. But as I mentioned, when I shared my personal experience, in order for us to grow esports, we need to look at a few key agendas. Without these key agendas, we'll never be able to ensure that the esports industry can grow holistically. We need to look at athletes' welfare, we need to look at the creation of Malaysia's very first National Esports League. We need to incentivize the increase of participation of women in esports. We need to address gaming addiction. We need to ensure that Malaysia becomes a home ground for many other regional esports conferences and summits. And we also need to ensure, in terms of esports infrastructure, we have a transparent and supportive licensing agreement with esports training centers across Malaysia. There are 5 key strategic priorities. If I were to explain in detail one by one, it will be a long 1-hour lecture. So allow me to summarize the best I can. Tetapi cadangan saya adalah untuk kalian semua memuat turun esports blueprint ini dan untuk menilai sendiri apa yang boleh ditawarkan dan bagaimana kita boleh berkolaborasi bersama untuk memastikan bahawa pembangunan esports ini dapat dilakukan bersama. There must be great collaboration between the federal government and state governments with esports enthusiasts and industry players together. But these are the 5 key strategic priorities which we are looking at. The first one is to develop athletes for esports excellence. Under this pillar, there are many things which we are looking at. First things first is to ensure that athletes' welfare is well taken care of. Like other traditional sports, we have contracts which are signed between corporations and athletes. Government also has unique, sustainable esports development programs in which esports athletes are taken in under MSN's wing for training and into a full training process from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, that they can effectively call themselves as esports athletes. They train like any other athletes, and their welfare will be taken care of like any other athletes. And while it is a gradual process, but we need to start from tonight onward, because the point in which athletes' welfare is not taken care of, it becomes a great disincentive for parents to allow their children to take esports seriously. It becomes harder for esports enthusiasts to take esports more seriously. That is where it becomes critical for us to ensure that athletes' welfare becomes a critical component of the esports blueprint. There are a few suggestions put forward, very specific ones we can look through. The esports blueprint and what we have installed. Beyond athletes' welfare is also to ensure that government and private sector ensure that the esports development goes hand in hand. So this is to ensure that the payment scheme is more sustainable, is to ensure that when gamers stream, it can be supported well between government and private sector, is to ensure that these two entities work with one another to facilitate the growth of the esports industry. So the first strategic trust is to look at how we treat other traditional sports and accord the same treatment to our esports athletes so that growth can be done together. It also addresses existing barriers which esports athletes face, whether it's the stigma and the taboo which surround esports and how we deal with it together. The second strategic trust looks at responsible gaming and esports ethics. This looks at gaming addiction and how the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education can collaborate together with the Ministry of Youth and Sports and private enterprise to ensure that there's ethical gaming and at the same time to ensure that people are not addicted to gaming to the point that it creates a backlash among the community. Beyond that, it also looks about increasing women participation in esports, not just as athletes, but also the esports industry overall, where we want to have more women streamers. We want to ensure that the job creation behind esports doesn't just go to men, but also go to women as well. So there are many things which are discussed in the second pillar. I implore for you to look at it one by one. The third one is better access to esports infrastructure. So obviously without good infrastructure, it becomes difficult for us to develop the esports scene together. At the moment, we don't even have a home base for esports. If you look at other traditional sports, you can find whether they are stadiums or whether they are training centers which are endorsed by the government for their training process. Even during the selection for SEA Games, we had our very own barriers. We had to rent different places. We didn't have the home of esports in which we can train them, in which the public can go and inquire for more information, in which private sector can collaborate together with government. So this looks at the creation of more esports centers in respective states and satellite zones and cities. It looks at the creation of a home ground for Malaysia's esports academy. It also looks at how government can support private esports academies which are already running across Malaysia. I visited a few, some in Johor, some in Malacca, and obviously those in KL, and see how we can grow them together. Fourth one is about building a sustainable esports ecosystem. Because we don't want esports to be a one-hit wonder. As we all know, the unique part about esports is that we can't just equate it to other traditional sports. While we want to ensure that they don't get discriminated, but at the same time to say that it's apple to apple would be wrong. Because we know how there are multiple different games and esports and how they change as time passes by. And with that, we need to ensure that we build a sustainable esports ecosystem. And that's where we work with the Ministry of Education to ensure that not just responsible gaming is taught to the young ones, but to ensure that we have a grassroots development program from the bottom to the top, even before going to MSN or ISN for support. We can already start from the school level and also in universities. We've already started Malaysia's very own esports league in respective universities. We do look forward to expand that to schools, and obviously in the future to have our very own national esports league and a very own competitive esports ranking system in Malaysia. Once you build that sustainable esports ecosystem, that's when even in years to come, the esports scene in Malaysia is more likely to grow and grow. Three players from federal to the state level the best we can. Because the point in which governance is strong and laws support the growth of esports, we believe we'll be able to move forward the fastest ways possible to go into schools, universities, and to support private enterprise when they invest in esports. So these are the 5 key strategic trusts of the esports blueprint. This is a living document as time passes by, we will take in important opinions of different stakeholders, and we do look forward to hear the constructive criticism from industry players and from important stakeholders to see how we can develop this even better as time passes by. The point is that this is the beginning of an exciting time for esports. It's not just the time in which esports is formally in the SEA Games for the very first time. It's not just the time in which the Malaysian government has allocated a special budget for esports, and not just a static budget for 1 year, but 100% growth in 1 year time, where the budget doubled. And if you include the budget invested in esports industry, there's a 400% increase overall. So it shows that the government is very committed to development of esports. But it cannot end there. For us to grow the esports scene, we need to grow it together. We need to ensure that governance is strong. We need to ensure that we have our national esports league from schools, universities to an open league. We need to ensure that athletes' welfare will be taken care of. We need to ensure that esports infrastructure and investments are well supported in Malaysia. We need to ensure that in the end, with all stakeholders working together, hand in hand, we will be able to cement Malaysia's position as Southeast Asia's esports hub. At the beginning, people will say that those who are enthusiasts of esports are those who can only dream, that they are dreamers, and that often they waste their time, and that esports in no way will support the future of a person. But I believe with the esports blueprint and with support of all players, in the future, not only can we tell them in the face that I can be an athlete if I join esports, that I can fly the Malaysian flag high through esports and win gold medals for Malaysia and all Malaysians, that I can create jobs out of esports, that I can be a professional gamer, streamer, commenter, and many other jobs which come out of the esports ecosystem, that I can create our very own game, and that game originates from Malaysia. That dream in 5 years to come can be a reality if we work together and ensure that this living document, Malaysia's very first esports blueprint, will become our guidance for all Malaysians, and in the end, develop Malaysia's esports system together. I look forward to working with all of you. I look forward to see Malaysia's esports taken to a greater height. But most importantly, I look forward to serving all of you. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, everyone.